My topic is, well, I just organized it, but I think it is relevant. And it is ASEAN in the meta-nation state interface. But I added a word after interface dynamics. However, I think we should not be talking of dynamics first, as we should start from the basic, but that should go. This is a rather broad presentation on how the ASEAN as an organic entity and the ASEAN member nations would interface or would interact among themselves within the region and outside the region. And I'm going to introduce a very simple concept I call the meta-nation state. This is a coinage that I had when I was writing my humble dissertation at the University of Tokyo. So don't be overwhelmed, but I just wanted to test this because since we are building an ASEAN studies program, I hope that this could be one of the small contributions that we could perhaps have. Okay, so can we please have the next? Okay, here, this is the ASEAN region, and with the ASEAN countries shown. Now, how do we interface between and ourselves? The previous speaker talked about how the region was influenced by colonizers. But here, the geographical location and the nature of the ASEAN member countries and of the region alone calls for some kind of how interface among the members would be conducted. And since the ASEAN is mostly, and I think in essence, a membership organization, and the members are nations or sovereign nation states, that's how I would like to use the meta-nation. So the meta-nation interaction. So anyway, this is the ASEAN in which we would hypothetically and maybe in imagination try to explore together. Well, I would like to introduce that the phenomenon of globalization as seen in a neutral phase, that we accept it not because we like it or not because we dislike it, but it is a phenomenon. And it is characterized by what I call quadruple I, that applied to the ASEAN region and the ASEAN countries, that our interface and interaction are characterized by, the first I is that it is intensifying. As we note, I think as a component of the ASEAN component in our own respective countries, the open university institutions, you see, we are intensifying our interaction. This is an example. Maybe in the beginning we met only once, but now we are meeting 3 times, 4 times a year. So this is a characterization of ASEAN interactions among themselves. It is not decreasing, but it is increasing or intensifying. That's the first I. The second is that it is inevitable. And with the goal of integrating ASEAN, I think this enhances our being integrated in a faster mode, because we cannot avoid, even as other countries would like to avoid interacting. And I think some of our ASEAN members previously, they said that they are more close than others. I think we have to mention like Myanmar. I think interaction, it's one of the, I don't know if our ASEAN citizens can go to Myanmar without having to secure a visa, but the rest, they already accepted that no visa. Yet, the inevitability is there. So I think eventually that this kind of constraint of interaction will have to be open because there is inevitable interface. The next is that it is intercultural. I think in the ASEAN studies program, we deal mostly with some of the aspects and dimensions of cultural character and nature of ASEAN societies. So when we interact, of course, as Malaysian, as Vietnamese, as Filipinos, as Thais, and there is inherent intercultural interaction. And now, I think the open universities in the fourth I, which I say ICT or IT-driven interaction. I think we should claim, the open universities should claim that that they are the forefront of this fourth I. We are interacting, not necessarily going, especially in our teaching, so it's IT-driven. So these are the four characteristics of globalization that ASEAN is now in the midst of. These are very simple, but just to put into perspective how the interface. Now, I think the relationships are covered or governed by the areas of interactions. We have the economic interface, political interface, strategic and security interface, and cultural and social interface. I think they are self-explanatory, and these are, but I just have to. All right. There are some practical ways by which this meta-nation state that would be explained, globalization study would entail. We could, in ASEAN interaction, we could use it in organizational development, management, policy making, training for global personnel, negotiation, global partnership, cooperation, conflict resolution, and other applications for interaction. So, ASEAN today is subjected to what I call a glocal continuum. Glocal is global and local. I think this has been used several in some fora, and this is not new. And so, when ASEAN interact, we have to be aware that, for example, the local domestic components are distinct and different from the global or the international component. That is just so. Well, the symbol there is a frog. I think the frogs are depending on the culture. But you see, when you are in a how do you call that, in a well, and you're a frog, do you think that the word is the well itself? That is the local. But actually, when you are outside, you're a frog. You jump into the, let's say, nearby we have the Laguna Lake. That is bigger than a well. And if you have the frog swim there, he will realize that it's not really, the word is not the well, but there is something else. And wider and broader and more, maybe wonderful and fantastic, challenging. So that is the international level. And that is how ASEAN and the ASEAN component countries would interact in this glocal continuum. So, the meta-nation state structure appears like this. Now, apply it to the ASEAN. First, we have the red one, the red level. I call that is letter A. I'm sure maybe it's not so clear, but I call that as the nation-state strata. So, I think when the formation of ASEAN in 1967 and even prior organizations, Mafilindo, ASA, others, they are all in this level, the A level, the state-to-state interaction. And they were decided by our leaders then, maybe the presidents, the prime ministers. So this is just one of the interactions. So that is how we were interacting then, by merely, so it's very limited, as you will see. It's only government, the sovereign instruments of the state. But as we progress in this meta-nation state interaction, there is a letter B. Now the yellow, what I call the intra-nation state component or strata. And that means it could be a sub-state entity. For example, a city in Thailand and a city in Indonesia and the Philippines, they have interaction. That's not the entire state, but it is a sub-state entity and player. Yet, interaction takes place. Now, we can consider the open universities as components in the intra-nation state, yet we interact without having to report to our Ministry of Foreign Affairs or Department of Foreign Affairs. Now, ASEAN is interacting now in this. So now we can, unlike the Mafilindo days, the ASA days, we can already form different conglomerations and groupings on our own in this level. And yet it is an ASEAN inter-ASEAN interaction. The last, which is the blue, I don't know, is this blue, light blue? Light green, I'm sorry. This is the supra-nation-state strata. Okay, how does it operate? For example, ASEAN now is interacting with the European Union. So that is beyond. But the interaction as one entity with another extra ASEAN. So supra means extra, outside. Or through the EPEC, sometimes the ASEAN countries are grouped and they negotiate as one vis-a-vis other entities. In the United Nations, there is an ASEAN bloc. That's why if someone would like to be a leader, then they have to contact the ASEAN. And it is through this supra-nation-state interaction that we impose or we receive benefits and we give blessings to or agreements to international and regional affairs. Seen in a different light, this is, you just call this as channels. It's still the ABC. The nation state and the intra-nation state and the extra-nation state. So there are channels. So you can choose the channels. It has the meta-nation state expanded the channels of interaction, interface between and among ASEAN. That it's not limited to A, but it's not only B, and it's not, but combined, then we have. So this is a challenge for ASEAN regional and global relations. And the study of it would even be more complicated. The so-called realignment and everything. And all these are very interesting in international relations. Well, to put it into words, not the ABC, but here we have the nation-state level, which is the core, and then the intra-nation, the sub-nation state, and oh, by the way, it just came into my mind. You're aware of BIMP IAGA. You know, BIMP means B-I-M-P. That is Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia. I think it is in alphabetical order. I think it is a very good scheme, you know, so that nobody will complain. It's the letter of the alphabet cannot be reorganized or rearranged. So M is Malaysia and then Philippines. They are interacting among themselves. IAGA means East ASEAN Growth Area. So that is an ASEAN interaction. Yet, it is an intra-nation, letter B, because it's not the entire Philippines that interact. It is only Mindanao and Palawan, minus Visayas and Luzon, that interact in this grouping. And it's not the whole of Indonesia, but what is the area in Indonesia? Kalimantan and some part. I think in Malaysia, what is the area that you front? Yeah, Sabah Sarawak. Of course, Brunei, you cannot divide it. It has to be in as a whole. You cannot get half of Brunei because it's a... But anyway, that is how it operates. This is inter-nation state relations. I already explained the supra-nation state, which is the extra-nation outside the nation in peripheral, but yet we are interacting. You can multiply until some of the indefinite number of interaction. For example, a nation state, a government can interact with a nation state, oh, that is lay, but B can also interact with another B and C, but you can make at least 6 different kinds of, this is a mathematical, you know. So for example, I heard that Singapore, well, it's a city-state. It does not want to interact with in forms of investment one time and another. It did not want to interact with the entire Japan, maybe because of the enormous and the gigantic. So it says, okay, Singapore and northern Kyushu. So Kyushu is an island. So, you know, that's very convenient. So that is a nation state with interacting with an intra-nation state. Now, I think even on another example, Singapore was trying to make some arrangement with Cebu for promotion of tourism. So they did not include Bohol, the neighboring country, but only Cebu and Singapore. So we have here, but down the line, we can have people-to-people interaction. We can have people-to-people. So to the individual, that's why I say it to the indefinite levels and strato of interaction. And this could be used in ASEAN interaction. When our friends from Thailand, from Indonesia, from Malaysia, from Vietnam come here, of course, they carry with them that they are their country's representation with us, with the Filipinos. And although we are not state representatives, we are not, but we are interacting in the ASEAN, in this meta-nation strata, maybe in the lowest, not the lowest, but the most detailed level. So I think it's just a summary of that meta-nation state interaction can be state or government, and it could be non-state players. And they can involve an individual and organization or institution, GOs, NGOs, and other entities. That I just want to, it does not select. So here we have broader, more interactions. So if we study these interactions in the ASEAN studies program, that would be a great challenge. So we have in the meta-nation, again, of course, there must be question, but I would like to say that there is such a thing as DNA or identity, but I don't mean the, chemical DNA, the one that doctors or forensic experts say. No, I just would like to introduce an idea, a concept that when ASEAN, as well as other entities, interact, they carry with them what we call an identity or DNA. So, I always talk to Dr. Asnar, even we are eating and even we are not eating, we talk. But when he speaks, he's of course first and foremost a scholar, but then you cannot get away from him that Malaysian, not the DNA as in the blood, but Malaysian DNA identity. As he cannot, or it cannot be taken away from me, my Philippine DNA. So we are interacting in that case. So as interactions in the meta-nation states occur, it could be individual, or it could be individual member countries and it could be the ASEAN itself. So when the ASEAN negotiate in the UN for some resolution on nuclear resolution on or certain issues, when, okay, these are the ASEAN group, because they're identified with that kind of DNA that runs through from individual to the strata that I just mentioned a while ago. Okay, so just for some detail, a nation state interaction would be that the interactor or player is the nation state itself, and or the government or related entities representing the sovereign state, its government agencies and instrumentalities. And in the interface, usually, the authority and the indivisible power of the state are paramount in the interaction. So, if you are not given some of the ASEAN, depending on the system of governance, I think our Vietnamese friends here could testify that maybe even they interact, but they have always to be aware that they have to carry certain blessing from the state. And that could also mean, we are not saying that that is bad or good, but that is a system that it should be recognized as such. Whereas some countries so free that they can interact without even thinking that and even representing there. But still, I would say that the DNA still runs. Also in the 192 nations, there will be 192 state players, referring to the membership as sovereign state. Okay, well, the intra-nation state, I already gave you some examples, the GO, NGO, and other entities, institutions, cities, local governments, etc. Private or state or non-state players. Then the supra, we say that the UN being the playground, within the UN we have actors and one of them is the ASEAN. So that's the end. Thank you very much.